Cara Zwibel is the director at the Canadian Civil Liberties Association's Fundamental Freedoms Program. Cara, all the focus on social media platforms spreading hateful content and inauthentic news. Should the government be involved in regulating the internet and punishing online hate?
Well, I think it's a really challenging question because I think we don't all have the same baseline definition of what hate really is. And that's one of the reasons that we as an organization have always had concerns about the government dealing with hatred in terms of expression, because it's a highly subjective idea. And even the courts that have grappled with this issue have come up with different answers to whether a particular piece of content crosses that line into criminal hate speech.
Okay, so Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called for a digital charter. And do you think having financial consequences for social media platforms who don't take down hate speech is a step in the right direction?
Well, I think it really will depend on what that means and how that's implemented. Because if we're leaving it up to the social media platform to decide whether something is criminal hate speech or not, then that's really sort of outsourcing a very complicated legal question. And like I said, even our independent, impartial judicial branch has had trouble with this question. So I think it's one thing to expect a platform to remove content where a court has determined that content crosses the line. But if we're leaving it up to the platform to decide when the line is crossed, then I think that may be an abdication of the government's responsibility. And again, even the government carrying out that function is a complicated question.
Okay, so where do we get the answer then for what is the baseline for what is considered hatred? And you're right, there are judges who have ruled, very differently on what can be considered hate. You can see, in our case, you can see something like Christians should die, and that's not considered hate.
No, so what the Supreme Court of Canada has said, their definition of hate speech isn't actually that helpful, because it's sort of just substitutes some synonyms for hate to say that, it's these strong and deep felt expressions of vilification or detestation towards a group. And there are certain hallmarks of hatred that the courts have identified where, a group might be compared to disease or to vermin, and there are calls for their extermination. So it's really the stuff that's on the very extreme end of the spectrum. And even that, probably a one-off comment wouldn't cross into that that line.
Cara, we'll have to leave it at that, but it is a very interesting discussion about freedom of speech. All right, Cara Zwibel from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.